Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Wargaming. I'm your host, Don Maidlow. I have a fun episode for you today, and it's a little different. So usually I go about interviewing content creators and painters and just people of our 40k scene. And this time, because we've got LGT this weekend when this episode comes out, what I've decided to do is interview players from clubs that are going to the LGT and have a big showing with their club there. So it's going to be UK teams, which is quite good. And then during the weekend, I'm also going to check in with them, and there'll be a post LGT video of showing how everyone's getting on, which is going to be quite fun. Yeah, so let's hear from the players. So up first, we've got Tom Lohman from the YouTube channel, podcast, and tournament team 6++.
Hello.
Yeah, so Tom, how you getting on?
I'm getting on very well, thank you. I'm really excited. I'm really looking forward to LGT. I've been out of the country for a couple of weeks, so I haven't thought about Warhammer at all until just now in that time, which is really exciting. So I'm looking forward to sort of getting my head in the game this week and getting back out there and having obviously one of the biggest events ever, really. It's going to be very exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, like LGT is such a huge event, and it's a big deal for any like UK tournament player, because it's not like LVO where the whole world goes. This is the big bad Europe tournament, and it's going to have everyone all over Europe coming. All of the WTC people come, and it's great as well because over the years we've been playing Warhammer, you would have had games with people, made friends, and you get to be up again.
You never have so many of them in the same place, do you, as you do at LGT? No. It's quite remarkable. It's really cool.
It's cool, but it's also exhausting. I remember the first LGT, I was just like bouncing from person to person to person, and I just find it so fun because
it is.
Yeah, because like it's a funny one because like one of the main reasons I love tournaments is because you meet people, you get to know people, and like you become friends. It's like how me and you became friends.
Well, exactly that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we knew each other from like tournaments, like game clubs, all this sort of stuff, and then we decided to make our Broken Metatarsals team.
We did. We ran our Broken Metatarsals team, got us a nice second place trophy. Where was it? Was it in Northampton somewhere? The international teams.
Yeah,
tournament. That was a great tournament. The meta was an absolute bastard at that point in time, and I had my GSC, and I was getting shelled to death by Tau artillery every other game. But it was a really wonderful event. It was really good fun.
It was really fun. It was really fun. So that's like a good reason if anyone's like looking to go to tournaments and wondering about LGT, all this sort of stuff. Like you make friends, and it's a great event. Yeah. So Tom, tell us about the team.
Yeah, so 6++. So I was going to say I want to do a shout out to my captain and my inspirational leader Chris Tull, because he is the sort of the key leader of 6++, and he is a regular with me on our podcast, that 6+++ show. And Chris and Lee founded 6++ in lockdown. It's a lockdown baby. It was a project they started doing sort of back reps together a couple of years ago, and even in the midst of lockdown, they even did sort of me versus I, like self bat rep, when they were playing both the armies because they couldn't actually meet up and stuff like that. So it goes back with Chris, Lee, and also Ben, who's a wonderful Tyranids player and painter. Those three started it. We've been going for about 2 years, and I came in, I guess, sort of in that post-pandemic moment when we just started playing games again and getting out to events. Because this has really been my sort of first proper competitive season, this UKTC, this extended UKTC season that we've had. It's my first one. I say it's my first one, but it's like feels like we've been going forever now. But and I think as a team, it's steadily growing. We've got a nice little core of players now, and I think we're taking about 10, 11 players to LGT. Some of which are there very much to enjoy themselves, and are very much sort of hobbyists and first and foremost, and there to have a good time. And some of which are definitely very strong, very serious players as well. And so we've got a nice mix in the team now. And I think we're sort of cruising in the sort of just below the top 10 for the sort of the teams in the UK at the moment. So I think we're looking at that and thinking maybe next year we'll have a go and see if we can break in and do a bit better. But what we're finding is there's some very good teams out there. So yeah, that's us. I think we like to play the right way. We like to play a good sporting game and have fun first and foremost. We like to make friends every game we play. And several of us are teachers, actually. So we've been quite enjoying making like content videos online. Our channel's got Faction 101 stuff. It's got Chris just started doing a whole series on how to play the primary and different missions, that kind of stuff. So we like to, as teachers, as soon as you start seeing a thing, you want to start gobbing off about it and teaching someone else about it. And much like teachers, I think we're often better at teaching others to do it than doing it ourselves. But that's often the way, and we have a great time with it. We've really enjoying the podcast, and certainly for me, what I've loved about 6++ over this year is that it's, as you say, it's that vehicle to meet people, it's that vehicle to go places. People start knowing who you are and what you're about. And we've played had some amazing run-ins. We took a team to a teams event, got smashed in by the England team, the Scotland team, all that kind of stuff. It's part of the course. So it's been really, really exciting. It's been a real whirlwind 2 years, and I think we're really, really looking forward to year 3 as well.
Yeah, that sounds great. Like I love it when a group of mates just come together, like form a team, and then suddenly players keep like trickling.
It snowballs, right? It just
does.
snowballs. Yeah, exactly. That's what's great about it. And I think we're at that moment right now where we're not too big. Haven't got too many players, but the core of players we do have are all great people, great minds in the game itself. And every time we bring someone in, it's because we really like the cut of their jib and like what they're about, and it's added something at every point.
Yeah, and I think it's great. So another thing for people that are watching this because they're curious about like team events and teams in general, it's like you don't need to like play like your best ability and try and get scouted by play all these big teams.
No.
Make them with your friends.
Yeah, exactly that.
Happens.
Yeah, exactly that.
So
I think it's different things for different people, isn't it?
Yeah, I completely agree. So LGT, you have a team.
Yeah.
What's everyone bringing?
That's it. So we've got a real mix, and I think it's that funny thing, isn't it, where depending on where the meta's at a given time, different people in your team are coming at an event in different ways, right? So if you take me as an example, I knew I was going to be away for several weeks. I love Madrakari. Madrakari, my favorite army. I've had a great time with them in this season, but obviously they're not quite as strong as they were. And as you yourself will know, there's a few armies out there right now that they really don't like. But I was like, that's what I'm going to take. An event as big as LGT. I'd rather go in with something I know really well, have a good time with it, and I know I'm good in some matchups. I know I've got some tough ones, but for me, I'm first and foremost just going to take a big swing at it with my favorite army, and also see if I can again jump up a few more places in the UK rankings with the last event, I guess. So that's where I'm at with it. But we've got a couple of players I think who are on really solid lists, who are really solid players, who actually maybe it's their time to shine a little bit. So Chris, our captain, he's been playing Harlequins for the last half of the season, and I think at an event like LGT that's so big, Harlequins can go real deep depending on the matchups. And I think I'll be really interested to see how Chris gets on. We've got Lee Churchwood, who's a Creations of Bile man like yourself, and Lee has been slogging away with Emperor's Children all season before the book. And he's frankly one of the scariest players I know. Like, he's very dangerous. He really comes at you, no holds barred. And so Bio, as you know, is basically the perfect army for a guy like that. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what Lee Churchwood can do with his Creations of Bile. And we've got a few others. So Dave and Jamie are taking Grey Knights. And are both more coming at it more just to go for the experience and kind of a nice end to the season. We've got Stuart McIntyre, who's been number 1 in Death Guard at various times. I don't know if he currently is. I hope he is. Who's taking the Terminus Est, the zombies and the Terminators. And I'm really interested to see how this goes, because I don't know if you remember, but I think there was a Terminus Est list that went all the way at the LGT last time, or got right up to right at the very end, and because it's one of those lists that I don't think anyone knows what to do about it, because it's quite unusual. People aren't usually expecting it. And Stuart is a very, very canny player, so I think he's another one where I'm like, if the matchups work out, I'll be really interested to see how that gets on, and whether the surprise factor gets him a long way, because Stuart is a meticulous player. So I think that's the general. That's the general spread. We've got a couple of new members who've come in. We've got Aaron playing Tau, who does lots of good work with crisis suits. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else I'm sort of there might be a few others, but that's the general spread. And I think there's a few in there where I'm like, yeah, I'd be really interested if it all lines up. That's the way our meta currently is, and I think you probably feel this way as well. It's like it really is that proper meta right now, where it's like you need that little bit of luck with what you play into and how the missions and going first, going second goes at different times, which is how it should be. It's not just like, oh well, he's brought that, so he will win at least 4 games. Like it's kind of, I think it's a bit more interesting than that.
Yeah, I totally agree with all that, because the meta is the best we've ever had. Minus, I do think there's a few armies that need toning down in the way they score.
Yeah, sure.
Even if you're smashing them, you still lose. It leaves a little bit of a feel bad, but not as feel bad as when we had Tau when they first came out, Nids when they first came out, we had Drakari for Harvey. It just feels better, because you into Sisters, into Thousand Suns, into Necrons, you feel like you have play still the whole time, which is great.
Definitely.
You're saying, like, obviously you've been away for a couple of weeks, and you kind of ummed and ahed about different armies, what you wanted to do. So how did you settle on Drakari?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I think my assessment of the state of the meta was that Drakari are in a tougher spot than they have been in a while. I think it's not that you can win games, but I think for going deep in events right now, chances are in normal conditions you're going to hit something that is a very hard counter to Drakari. I mean, and Bile and Chaos Space Marines in general, Emperor's Children as well, are the big ones for me, right? Like, because I think there are types of players. I suspect you're like me. I'm more of a combat-oriented player. I really like melee. So we've always got one eye. Well, who's best at melee right now? And for a long time, it's been, well, whatever happens, I'm best at melee. Whatever I come into, I'm going to throw some Incubi in, and everything's going to be okay. But the terrain has shifted in that sense, I think, at the moment, and I think Chaos has slightly altered things. And I love my Chaos, and I'd love to run some more CSM based lists in the future. But I don't have all of the stuff I'd want to run that with right now. So one of my criteria when I was away was, well, I need to submit this where I can get home and just start practicing it. Don't need to build anything, don't need to paint anything. I can just have a few games over the week and be ready to go. And so with Drakari, that's the army where whatever the meta, I can be like, oh, what do I need? What I'll go to the big shelf of all my horrible, nasty little elves, and I can always find something. And so I'd been dabbling in Ynnari, and I ran Ynnari at the Unconquerables, and I actually really enjoy the Ynnari. I think you can do some fun stuff with the Incarn, with planes, with D cannons at the moment, but I felt like the margin for error is very, very tight with Ynnari, and I think I still have a way to go to figure them out. I mean, I'm also interested in sort of Craftworld's Phoenix Lords based lists at the moment as well, but that's a conversation for another day. So I think my assessment was, well, given that you've still got plenty of mistakes in you with the Ynnari and you're still figuring it out, take an army that you know really well, and in a field as big as LGT, anything can happen. Right. And I live a charmed life at events. Every now and again, I just get a really nice run, and we just see how we go. So I'm just going to have to fall back and hope that happens again. You never know. And I just need to try and stay away from these horrible fight on death Chaos Space Marines who look at you and go, well, that was very clever, but you're still dead. So I think, that was the criteria for me. Fall back on something you know really well. Fall back on something you really enjoy playing. That's the other thing with Drakari. I love getting stuck in. Whatever happens, you kill a load of stuff. They kill a load of your stuff. Everyone has a bloodbath, and that's good fun. And I think for me, I was looking at, well, it'd be nice to get one more decent score for my UK ranking. It's an army I know very well, and it's also, for me, it's the one that has defined my season. Right, I've played some other armies at different points, but Drakari for me has been my army this season, and that's what I've had the most joy with and the greatest experiences with. So that was my criteria. I also, and this is the bit of tech that's new, is obviously at the Unconquerables we had Julio, who went very deep with Drakari. And one thing I looked at his list, when I was looking at his list, I saw he was using the custom witch cult Berserk Fugue. And I was like, what's Berserk Fugue? I've never even looked at that one before. I had a read of it. I was like, and this is what the Drakari book does, right? There's always some horrible thing hidden away that no one's realized yet, because it was just so nuts. And that's exploding sixes to hit on your witches, which is lovely, very funny on the precision blows succubus, like very funny. And then a 5-up shrug against mortals. And that's quite nice for the Hellions and the Blood Brides and that kind of stuff. And my favorite way to run Drakari is Incubi, Grotesque, Pain Engines, right? That's what I like. That's whenever who's going well, that's how I like to play Drakari. But Pain Engines aren't in a great spot right now. So I thought Incubi, Grotesque, get some witches in and try this Berserk Fugue and see what Julio's on, because Julio's a very smart Drukhari player. He knows he won't be far off. So I'm really curious to see how that goes. I'm going to start play testing it today, later on, and get a few games in this week. So that's the new bit. Well, I always like to try something new. Whenever I take an army out, and that for me, I'm really excited to see where that goes and have a few funny moments with the Succubus when she goes in and just does an absolute truckload of damage.
That it's interesting, isn't it? Because like Drukhari is such a fun army to play,
super fun to play,
and that is one of the things about like a big tournament like this. Like, you don't want to be playing an army you don't really know.
No,
it's hard to play, and you're overthinking everything.
I think that's exactly it.
Yeah,
it's taxing, and as you say, it's quite a mentally tiring event because you talk to so many people all the time. Like even on your spare time, you try to walk to the toilet, you'll talk to like 4 different people because you just know so many people. So it's quite easy to get a bit frazzled at AGT and get a bit overwhelmed by the occasion. So keeping it simple, I think, is good. And Drukhari are, I mean, at their heart, they are a simple. I mean, as you say, they're very fun to play because they come in, everything dies on all sides. So it's a bloodbath, and one side wins or the other, but it's always very lively and very fun.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That is great. So with LGT, so like obviously you mentioned that you're going because you want one last kind of points before the end of the season.
Yeah.
Do you have any other reasons for going to LGT?
Yeah, for me, I think the social experience I had at the last one was incredible. I played players from all around the UK. People I hadn't met or heard of before, and some really interesting lists as well, right? Some of them very good and very scary. I remember my loss at LGT last time was Adam Lane on the Admech Plains, and he completely ruined me. Not only did he ruin me, but then I had stuff like Drazar died getting out of a Venom on a 1, like all that sort of stuff started happening because it was quite a desperate game, and I got into him a bit more than he was expecting, but it was still an absolute massacre in the end.
Yeah.
But then I played a lad who had like 120 demonettes, and it was his first ever event. And he was a chap called, what's he called, Matt, I think he was. And it was his first ever event, and I ended up turning up on his table round 5 as he got his first win. It was just brilliant. It was just really, really exciting to watch him because he was very new, like the most gentlemanly, polite lad I'd ever played. He was from like down southwest somewhere. Lovely accent, and it's those kinds of experiences I think with LGT that are absolutely wonderful. So it's going to be really, really cool to be in and amongst it. And I think that for me, because it's end of season, that's kind of how I'm feeling. I feel like I've sort of got a sense of how competing works this year. I've done all right at it in places, but I've also spent a lot of time pissing about, basically, Dom. Yeah. I've run a lot of really silly stuff, and done and had fun with it as well. So I'm quite happy with how this year has gone, and I think I'll probably come out of the traps a little bit more aggressively next year, but we'll see how we go. So I'm just there to, I mean, don't get me wrong, no one wants to play me playing Drukhari. It's not a fun time for anyone. Like, I'm not gonna give that game up easily, but I'm not trying to be completely on meta or on brand. But I just have that feeling with a pool as wide as this, with however many 100 players we've got, who knows what you hit.
Who knows? Well, yeah, so who knows indeed, but luckily we will be checking in over the weekend and doing a little video. So so
I'll be on my 3rd Creations of Bile list. I'm not having a nice time, Dom.
You get me round 1, Lewis round 2.
Oh, if I get Lewis round 2, that probably means I beat you, mate, so I don't mind.
Right, so I wanted to keep this short and sweet, so thank you so much for coming on. And I wish all of you, all of your teammates and you, the best of luck for LGT, and we will check in during the event. But yeah, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, and good luck in the Invitational and the event yourself. I say you're on the bile, so we will see. I'm very intrigued to see how you get on.
God, yeah.
No pressure, Tom. No pressure.
Right, thank you so much, Tom. And we're on to our next interviewer. Right, we have a new guest now. So that was Tom Lohman from 6++, and now we have the main man of LGT from last year. He won the Invitational. Then the next day and the next weekend, he just won the LGT. So this is the last year's winner. This is Malik. How you doing, Malik?
I'm good, Dom. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Yeah, I'm great. Yeah, I'm super excited to have a little quick chat about like pre-LGT for you. And yeah, I'm just excited for this huge event that's happening because it seems to be like the almost like it's like the LVO of Europe, which is great for our like great for Zach and the community that he's kind of made, but it's also great for all of the Europeans that can come and game so locally rather than going to Las Vegas.
Oh, it's and also just huge props to Zach and the team that do it. You know, like because it's not just even just a 40K tournament. Like it is such a celebration of our hobby. Like there's literally well over 1,000 just hobbyists under one roof doing all sorts. Like I actually always end up walking around and just seeing all the other stuff and just blown away. But there are people they're hobbyists and it's so much fun. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things as well. Is on I think it's on the first day or second day at lunch they put all the armies on parade and you get to go see these absolutely nuts converted armies. You say Eldar all made of lizards and all that nonsense. So it's great because some people literally don't do any tournaments or anything like that. They just paint, and you get to see these marvelous creations, which you probably only see on Instagram. So it's a great tournament. So tell us about your teams. Your team is the formidable Dice Down, and it's the number 2 ranked team in the world. So tell,
Yeah.
tell us about that and how that came about.
Oh, I think that's a sore point actually, Dom. Like we've been ranked second a couple of times, but never been able to hit that number one at end of season. We've definitely hit there
Yeah.
mid season. So yeah, I feel super privileged, obviously to play with this team. We're mostly a London based team that kind of came together somewhere early 8th edition or mid 8th edition. And been together since, and just really fortunate actually. We're a group of guys that are all good friends outside of the hobby as well.
Yeah.
Alex and I kind of founded or started it very early on with Conrad, George, and a bunch of others have joined since. Alex and I were flatmates for a long while, so yeah, really privileged. Like pretty much the whole team are major winners now. We have four super major winners. So I just think lots and lots of really great players, and I think we've tried to really build a team around winning and playing the right way as well, which was super important to us, and been fortunate to get a few results. So just delighted with the team.
Yeah, definitely. So my first ever tournament I went to, my first round pairing was Conrad. First ever event, and I got absolutely battered because it was the Eldar Flyers, and they'd just come out when they were like
Oh Lord.
and then I think he went and won like some sort of I think it was the Invitational, like literally the next like week or whatever, and I was like, oh, so he's like a real good player.
Yeah, he beat me that invitational actually. So, I still haven't forgiven him for him. Yeah, totally. Conrad was actually probably one of the earliest people that I really looked up to because of his consistency. It's when I realized that winning in this game was a little bit more than just lists or luck. Like you had to add a little bit more to it, and it's just a wonderful thing. Like Conrad is probably one of our older. I say older players. He's a kid. He's young, but but he's been around since 7th, and he actually won LGT as well. One of the first LGTs, if not the first one. So he's an ex-LGT winner as well. So just learned loads from people like that.
Yeah, I totally get it. And actually, I tell you like Vic actually beat me as well this year. So, tallying up all the Dice Down losses.
Vic beats everyone in fairness.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
you're not alone there. He beats all of us as well. So he kicks ass. Vic was probably one of the first additions to the team, and he's one of the very few we have outside of London. And I remember when Vic joined, and I think he's famous for it, right? Because like Vic is vicious when it comes to gameplay, but he's obviously one of the sweetest, kindest, nicest opponents you can play against, right? Whilst he's tabling and
I know. I felt like that. I felt like that.
But it was exactly that, like we wanted like all that he is and the person that he is, and also the fact that on the table he could add so much. So one of the few shoots outside of London. Not that we mind, not that it is a London-based team, but just out of pure chance, one of the people that we have outside of London.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's really cool how just started off as mates, and then you started introducing all these top level players, but then you've kept the consistency of the level of the team, and I think that's great. So how does that sort of like mindset as like one of the top teams, like how do you prepare as a team for like this caliber of event?
Oh, you used a great word there, which is mindset. So the reality is we have different objectives in our team. There's definitely people on our team that, you know, play the faction they love to the best of their ability to you know, use weird and quirky armies, and then there's a core of us that absolutely want to play to win. And you know, that always feels like a hard thing to say, because people maybe associate that with win at all costs or whack, which is not the case, right? It is about wanting to compete. You know, like I've always thought, you know, one of the first things I remember reading about Warhammer, it's like, you know, you play in your own way. You know, if you want, you know, this bottle top to be a tank turret that has, you know, has cannon on it when we were kids, right? So for us, you know, like for a lot of us, playing to compete is one of the most fun things. I love being across somebody else that's got a killer list, and you know that any misplay that they're gonna hit you hard. So we're absolutely going with the right mindset, and it's something I talk. The boys are probably really bored of hearing me say it, but I talk a lot about mindset, about making sure you reach the table thinking and knowing that you have a way to win, and you never get overawed or kind of you show too much respect to the opposing list. The beauty is that it's a bit of an echo chamber of helpfulness, right? So we've managed to kind of get so many good players that we all bring each other's level up, you know. Like what I'd say to anybody else with the team is like that group chat is gold, you know. And you've got to mix having enough players to add good input without necessarily diluting the conversation too much. We will have that chat that has 160 messages by the time it hits lunchtime. So we kind of we talk, and the beauty is that between all of us, we play every single army, right? Like there is ultimately 10 of us in total. So we play every single army. You know, today, just today, actually, we just obviously pairings were up, and we started talking about each other's pairings. I have to ask you, by the way, Dom, when you searched your pairing, did you think it was me?
I thought it was you, and I actually got well excited. I was like, yeah, I'm playing Malik. I was like, oh, it's not the real Malik.
I thought it was you too, actually, because I need to meet this other chap that's called Malik, because I've never seen another Malik at a tournament. So yeah, I was excited too. But we basically like immediately broke down everybody's opponent's list. So George is playing against GSC, right, and I'm playing GSC. So immediately here's a recap of what I see and what I think and how I would play it against you. You know, I've got demons, and the boys, because I've been out for a little while, for a few months from the hobby, so I haven't seen the new demon book or anything like that. The boys immediately are like,
here's all the
here's what you want to be thinking about. So that's absolute gold, really. And then I don't know if you're gonna ask, but on the day as well, like you've got to like this thing, if you really want to compete, is the same as kind of like professional sports, right? Like you've got to be there for each other, encouraging each other between rounds. You know, there's always that moment sometimes when you get a matchup and it's a matchup you didn't want. And you can let your head drop, and you need to make sure that actually you pick people up, say, look, just sit down, focus, you can win this. And you know, I have this thing about win the games you're supposed to win, you know, like I think it's really, really key. Like winning tournaments is about giving yourself as many opportunities as possible. So one of the mindsets we talk about as well is just, you know, win the games you're supposed to win. So like if you have a massive list advantage because you've been fortunate enough to be paired into something you're good into, like win it. You know, don't let any chance like that slip through.
I feel like that as well, because I got I think it's quite a good matchup for me, which is because I'm playing Bile and I'm against Space Wolves round one, and I was like, I can't take the foot off the gas just because I'm confident about it. I need to actually play it well, because they do it like every list can have like dice can go badly. Dice can go badly, so you need to always play a top game, even if you think it's like a good matchup. So I like the mindset that you said just then. So obviously last year, like, you won it, and you wear the crown for this year, so everyone will be like waiting to play you and hopefully take it off you. So have you got like you don't have to go through your whole list, but like do you like, why Dunes to the Cult?
Yeah, I mean, more than anything, I approached this season, let's say, or the start of this season, wanting to play a little bit less at the apex,
Yeah.
Trying to tune away and really, really enjoying myself, and leveraging, I guess, a little bit more player skill than raw output, right? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Adnick was just raw output and then make the right decision.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you still had to not make mistakes. You still had to survive stuff. So, like, last year I went second against Orc Buggies before they got nerfed, right?
Yeah.
Think pure unnerfed Orc Buggies and then going second, even as Admic, it hurts.
Yeah.
But I wanted to just have a little bit more fun, play with a little bit more tricks. My original love was Yunari. Again, before the pure, or sorry, just after the raw output that Yunari had, but when actually was quite fragile and really glass cannony, like, yeah, absolutely, it smashed some people, but like, you could really easily fall apart if you'd made a mistake. So I wanted to play something very similar to that, and GSC are that. Like, I love the way that book is written. Nearly every unit is good. There's some quirks. There's definitely some things that I'd love to talk to people about, like why none of the GSC characters have invulnerables, or why a Patriarch costs the same as Drazar and does about a third of the damage. But we won't talk about that. So yeah, I wanted to play that. So look, for me, it's definitely not. Like, I want to take in LGT and enjoy it and be there with my mates. But like, it isn't the kind of, like, I wouldn't hide from saying I want to win this event. But if I wanted to win this event, I don't think I'd be taking this list. But at the same time, I think I can compete. I think I can catch a few people out.
Oh, definitely.
GSC is not about gotchas. Don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna, like, spring someone with a rule that they don't know, but like, I think there's a lot of kind of underestimating that goes on, because ultimately you're usually fighting against things that are T3 or T4 with a 5-up save, and it makes people really underestimate them. So just going there to have loads of fun. I can't wait to be in and around the atmosphere. It's been so long for me as well since my last tournament. And then just good memories from last year. Like, I actually really like the venue. And last year was wicked. Like, by the end, I was absolutely destroyed.
Imagine.
I feel very sorry for anyone that makes it deep into the Invitational and deep into the tournament this year, because it's going to be even worse. So honestly, like, the last game, and infamously a short game, but gratefully a very short game. And, what sadly got no coverage last year was the game before the final, the semi-final. I played it like a wicked game that took ages, the full 3 hours, and was a proper grind. So yeah, really good memories. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think that's great though, because like you said, like, you've won it. You kind of don't need to win it again, do you? You can just sit back, have fun, actually take in the event, rather than being, oh my god, who's my pairing? Oh my god, this, oh my god, that. Because I remember, because we were playing next to each other when you were playing that Terminator list, and
Oh my gosh,
you said to me, you were like, Dom, he's like, he could be screwing up my event with this list. I don't think I can kill them all.
It's like, I snuck in 4th in the top 4 last year, right? It's like I snuck in, and it was, I'll never forget it. It was against John King, and he's a wonderful guy to play, right? But there was a hold 2 mission. It was the Diagonals, the old one. I can't remember what it was called now. But it's a hold 2 for 5, right? And he literally has this just big unkillable blob, and I was really confident, right, that he could not beat me because he didn't have the output. But but I could not get 100 against this. So there was no way I could get 100. And, if you remember in particular, it was the first time we played such a big event with 5 rounds. So we were all really anxious that we needed to score, 96 to 100 every single round or we were out, right? So yeah, it was stress, there I am as one of the favorites and rocking a really strong, powerful army. I could get undone by 50 Dark Angel Terminators,
Yeah.
Gratefully, and I don't think I had an easy run by any stretch of the imagination, given I played Stephen Box round 1 and John round 2, and then I had to play through buggies, and then actually Joe Malem's Dark Eldar as well.
Oh God.
So I definitely didn't have an easy run, but ultimately, scoring 85, I think I scored or something on that game.
Yeah.
Gave me the run that I had, and it ultimately takes me to the final. So hindsight's a beautiful thing, and say, hey, yeah, that's what I wanted. But it was stressful. You're right. I'm really looking forward to just being able to play. I will share one thing, really kind of a bit egotistical, but it's quite nice because some people are like, oh my God, I'm playing, the LGT champion or a well-known name. And then, right now my army's definitely not optimized. And, then when they beat you, it feels great. And you know what, I just enjoy sharing a little bit about my hobby and my journey. And so yeah, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, that's awesome, man. So what I was gonna do is over the weekend is we're gonna catch up. We'll have a quick little conversation. It won't be the greatly official. I'll probably extend my arm or or just
the selfie stick will be out.
You on the wall, and I'll do little video questions. But we'll meet up over the weekend, just see how you're getting on, and I'll put it together as like a part 2 episode. And yeah, I mean, I wish all of you at Dice Down best of luck for the tournament, and thank you so much for coming on, and you as well. Best of luck with your Gene Stealer cult, and yeah, thank you for the little quick interview.
Likewise, Dom, and have a great tournament yourself. See if you can maybe draw your way all the way through. You're famous for it.
I've got 4 draws at Zach events, and even at the Invitational, I got a draw first round.
I don't think I've ever drawn a game in tournaments.
Yeah, ever. It just happens. I drew Nassim as well, and it just happens. You just bully each other out of scoring. That's literally how it happens.
That's your thing.
It is. But anyway, thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, we'll see you at LGT.
I'll see you Friday. Take care.
Bye. Hello, and we're back with another team. So this is the team captain for the UK tournament team called Warmasters, and this is James Pilkington. Hi guys, nice to see you. Yeah, that's just it. No, you won't be able to see them, but they'll see you. Sure. Warmasters is one of the prolific teams in the UK, and they are a top 10 team in the world right now in the ITC rankings going into LGT. So, James, tell everyone about Warmasters. How did it come about? Yeah, so I mean, I feel like there's probably 3 or 4 different types of teams, right? There's the elite teams like Art of War, who are got some hyper elite individuals in there, and even probably Dice Down is in that category as well. I feel like we've got a couple of people that are making their way to that sort of level. The second type of team, I guess, is probably something like like Vanguard or Glass Hammer, which is associated with like an organization or a shop. I feel like we're in the third category, which is probably organically grown out of a group of friends. Our backstory is very much group of people that were playing in their early teens, probably even as young as sort of 9 and 10, and then dropped it for obvious reasons, and then picked it up when disposable income got a little better. And I think we've organically grown just by like picking people up at sort of tournaments that we've had good games with, and
we've been pretty closely aligned with the London Wargaming Guild. And to be honest with you, we weren't getting that many good results early on. We spoke earlier. We watched loads of D6 Evolution. We watched loads of what's the guy, Brian in the US? I can't remember his name now. To really learn. And there were a couple of us that sort of stepped into the competitive scene. We went to one of the Bad Moon tournaments, I think probably around 2019. Yeah, one of the RTTs. And then we got hooked. It was sort of like we went from a group of guys that were bringing 1,000 points down to Dark Sphere or whatever, and to actually thinking, right, okay, now we need to actually think about objectives, and now we need to think about how do we actually score points in these games instead of just all out war and in these battles that we were doing. Over the last few years, we've been getting more and more competitive. We've entered a number of team tournaments. We've done pretty well. During lockdown, we went into the WTC practice, sort of massive. I think there was about 300 people in that tournament. We did pretty well. And then I think we've got a number of pretty decent players now in terms of certainly high-ranking players like Nassim and Julio, and there's a number of others that are on their way to great things, I think. So that's I think that's largely our backstory.
Yeah. Well, it's like I gotta say, I've played Jack Tight, I've played Julio, I played. There's been about Nassim. Obviously, me and him got a draw at the London Open. That was when my tyranny of draws started, and it's every time I played a guy from Warmasters, it's always been a very, very high level competitive play with normally quite meta armies, but it's always been great fun. Like you guys are a great bunch of guys who obviously play at such a high level because you're top 10 in the world, which is huge, especially for just a group of mates, which is fantastic. And yeah, it's great. I've always had a great experience, and this is like you're kind of like almost like what a new team should aspire to be like, where you're just a group of friends and you decide to up the level of your game, and it's worked. You're picking up all of these players. You're getting some really, really sexy jerseys soon, and it's great. It's great fun. So obviously, like as a team, you're going to LGT this year. What you don't need to name people. What armies are Warmasters going to be bringing to LGT?
Yeah, it's a pretty mixed bag. I should also say thank you for those very kind words as well. Nice of you to say. But it's a pretty mixed bag in terms of the armies that we're taking. There's obviously some people that are taking much more meta armies than others. And that's kind of our sort of, I guess, philosophy in general. It doesn't really matter about what ability you are. I think, our entry requirements, if you can call that, is really, just don't be a dick kind of thing. And as long as you fit within, the sort of culture of us, and just play good games and have a good time, then I think it's, that's what we're about. But in terms of the armies, I guess some of the key ones, Julio's bringing his Drakari. He's going for top UKTC Drakari. You've got Nassim, who's ditched his Iron Hands and he's moving now to Tau.
I was shocked at that. I messaged him and I was like, "What are you doing?"
I thought he may have brought them to the Invitational, but no, he's completely divorced from Iron Hands now and is in love with his Tau. Yeah, I get like 5 messages a day from him saying, "Dude, why are you dropping Tau? You need to stick with it."
Yeah.
I personally, although I'm not really going for great things at LGT, but I'm bringing Necrons. Pretty straight. It'll be my first game next week with Necrons. Typical meta chaser. Yeah, I'll try and get one game with them before the balanced data slate completely wipes them out of existence. And Jack's bringing his orcs. So you mentioned Jack Tite. He's going for top orcs in the UK. He's got a spicy orc list that he's been working on over the last few months. And actually, we did an RTT at Bad Moon, just the Warmasters guys, and Jack actually won it. He won it with his orcs. Yeah, so
that's awesome.
Exciting things.
Yeah, we're 1-for-1 with me and Jack with orcs. So I played them twice, both with Jakari, and it was when the book of orcs just came out with the buggies, and he hammered me.
Yeah.
Like I remember it. I picked up 4 buggies in one turn, and I had everything tagged, and I was like, easy. Then I got tabled.
Yeah.
In one turn, and I was like, "What is this? Are these death cults? What are these?"
It'd be interesting to see how they did now. That see what would it be like running around with 18 buggies again? I don't suspect people would take the squig buggies, but maybe I can't remember what they're called now. The flamer ones may be a substitute. I'd be interested to see how they would fare actually.
Probably pretty good actually in the meta, because it's it's a very weird one. It seems to be turning into quite a combat meta of the majority of the players, but you see a lot of people, Nassim in general is switch, and Alex Harrison, they're all switching to like Tau and gun armies, because it's like what counts as shooting? Guns.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, and the LGT terrain, it kind of allows for it. There's the middle ruins where you can touch, and you can then see lots of gun sort of corridors, shooting lines and things. So yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah. So your list. Just do you want to briefly run through it? What's your thoughts on it, Mr. Meta chasing Necrons over here?
Well, I have to be completely honest. I think saying my list is probably would be a disservice to. I think it was Jack Harpster that I just completely ripped off his Nova list. But I made one little change. I think I added an extra relic in there just to add a little bit of a personal touch.
Make it spicy.
I probably made it 50 times worse now, but yeah, I mean it's essentially the I feel like there's 3 sort of main Necron lists. It's probably it's not quite as good as the Hackett list with 3x5 race and 28 scarabs or whatever, but I have a decent number of scarabs in there. And it's really a case of don't table me by turn 3 and I have a high probability of winning the game, I think is probably the strategy.
It's the secondaries.
How it works.
I can't get over how good the secondaries were, because I was playing James Marston, who's a prolific Necron player at the Invitational, and I was playing a really good. I thought I was playing a really good game, and held Necrons to 4 primary for 2 turns, and I was like, this is good, keeping the pressure on. One thing flips the entire game. I basically charged Possessed into 5 destroyers, right? Where I killed them all but 1 and left it on like 2 wounds. And I was just like, oh, they're possessed. They're just going to clean the unit. Like they're fine. Like I'll just get through it. And I had the 2 CP for +1 to wound, which would have been wounding on 2s. And I didn't use it. If I'd used it, I may have won the game, or may have like balanced it out a bit more than it did. But he then rezzed 4 or 5 destroyers back, and then took 2 objectives. And I was like, well, that's 12 points for you for the rest of the game every turn. And if I'd have spent that 2 CP, he wouldn't have had all the shots. He would have had like a couple of Catans left. Yeah, it was like the reanimation is a serious mechanic, and if you can master it, it's definitely.
I think the thing keeping Necrons afloat at the moment is the secondaries. I mean, the damage output. Okay, yeah, they have the re-rolls from Silent King. That's probably going to get toned down a little bit, but their damage output still isn't that great. Their shooting is not that great. The destroyers are pretty good shooting wise, but everything else is a bit sort of against like Armor of Contempt. The combat, the Scorpex are pretty handy, and the Ophidians are pretty good. But it's pretty easy to kill. You just have to make sure you don't leave one alive. That's the
problem. That I do find like you can do the mass warrior blobs, you can do the pre-move and obsec sort of armies, but I do feel that you need some Catans in a list because I really struggled against the Catans because I had a Demon Prince that could one-shot a Catan.
Yeah.
I couldn't then one-shot the other one because then the other one would heroic intervene to it and then kill me. So it was such a like weird cagey game. And the mechanics really kind of bend a little bit of the survivability because you can just throw them forward like Gazgul and just say try and kill me. But so you're taking Necrons. This will be like your first event with Necrons. So why? This is a question I ask everyone. But why are you going to LGT this year?
It's probably, well, I think from my perspective, these tournaments now, I'm actually enjoying the social aspect a little bit more actually than the playing.
Yeah.
And actually, of all of the events, and this is not to say that LGT is a bad event. Like I think I actually would prefer the smaller events, just because they're a little bit more centered in the city, and we often stay at a nice hotel, and we go out for dinner afterwards, and it's a little bit more of a event where LGT is a little bit like, well, we're in an this is not to knock LGT, it's the best that we can do, but it's like, oh well, we're in a industrial park, and it's like, well, where do we go now for for dinner kind of thing. So I'm going because, and let's be honest, it's also not the most comfortable of Zach's events either. Like the tables are often 20 deep or whatever, and you have to run around, and there's, if you think of like some of the recent events that Zach's been put on, it's been so much more improved, but at the end of the day, on this scale in the UK, we don't have like big hotels with massive conference centers that can fit 1,000 people playing toy soldiers. So I go because this is the one event where like 90% of the team go. And there's I don't necessarily, I think if we're honest, it's probably not the best gaming experience, but it does, it gets you points, right? Like, let's be honest. If we think of like the UK, if we get onto the UKTC ranking, there's, unless you're winning the sort of the regional majors, or at least coming in like the top 2 or 3, you're never going to get the points that you would get from even coming in like 30th at LGT. And I guess you could say, well, that's a bit of a sad reason for going to these events, but at the end of the day, like everyone wants to do well, and it's cool to be on in the rankings, and
it is.
So from a team perspective, we're currently sitting 4th, 20 points behind your team. And like there's a real opportunity here that if we have a higher number of people that rank in the top 50 or so, then we could get 3rd place. So I think that's a little bit of a driver, but for me really it is, I obviously we want the points. We you probably are going to get a more diverse range of opponents. Like you look at the pie charts that people have been making of the factions, I don't think we've ever seen a more diverse range of factions. Yeah, Necrons, my bad. They are, I think 8% or something, or 7.8%. I can't remember the exact figure, but like you're going to get a varied, probably even more so varied range of opponents than you would at some of the smaller majors. So I think that's a draw, but it has its pros and cons. These super majors, I think they have their pros and cons, but
yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree with you. I think a lot of people, or a lot of the top players, LGT is kind of like a must do.
Yeah,
have to get those points. Like recently, like Innes just knocked me out of the top 10 of the UK TC. So I'm just looking now, 4 points below him. So I need to get him back. And, and if I place higher than him, I will leapfrog him.
I mean, people moan about the points, but at the end of the day, like, if you think of like a tennis player, right? Like, you're not gonna get to number one if you're just going to like little regional, national sort of level events. So you have to go to these big events and do well at them in order to get a decent seed or ranking. It's the same with Warhammer, and yes, there's some like controversy over, well, should you get more points if you're in 30th at like a 700 person event versus coming first at a 30-man event? And it's like, well, everything above first, second, and third is kind of noise, right? It's like, is it really worth worrying about someone getting more points for 30th compared to someone, because that person who came first GT is never going to get enough points against someone who's regularly coming in the top 5 of a super major. So it's for me, it's all noise, and you can skin the cat in multiple different ways, but it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. At the end of the day, no one, unless it's a controversial ending, no one remembers who came second in LGT. No one remembers who came third, right? It's only if there's like a bust up or a controversial situation that anyone actually cares. So
yeah, you make a very good point. But yeah, so I will be seeing you at the LGT.
We will.
We will be hanging out, hopefully playing, because we haven't played yet, and I'd love to play.
We haven't played, no.
And yeah, I've been saying this on every interview, but I'm planning on doing a video catch up over the weekend with everyone I have on this episode. So if I remember, I will interview you and see how you do. It might be after your first game, or it might be never, or it might be after your last game. We never know. So we'll hope to check in. And I wish you all the best of luck for the event and for the rest of the Warmasters boys. And yeah, we will see you at LGT.
Great, yeah, see you there. Look forward to it.
Auburn's Wargamers, who are currently known as SAW, and they are a local club to me. I'm from St Albans. They're the local gaming club, and over the past year, maybe 2 years, they've ramped up their competitiveness. And this year, they're going to LGT, and there's quite a few going. So, Matt, welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
It's all right. It's all right. So, tell us about your team and the club.
Okay, so we're St Albans Wargamers, or SAW for short. We are a little club. Well, we were a little club in St Albans. Just a few like-minded gamers meet up in a sort of a scout hut once a week. That was pre-COVID, and there weren't too many of us. As people have been able to go back to gaming, we have grown massively. We've really grown. We're not just 40k. We've got some people that play Sigmar, Necromunda, and other games that I'm not familiar with, like Bolt Action, things like that. We regularly sort of fill our area. It's about 12, 15 tables. we've all got terrain now. So every table's got terrain, all the mats that we need. So we've really sort of developed from a point where we were quite small, just a few of us. We've stuck with it, and I think lockdown sort of created a bit of interest back in gaming for a lot more people, and that's helped us massively, and we've really expanded and spread. So yeah, we're doing okay now. There's a few of us that were playing before sort of COVID. So you were there, I was there, and a few other of the guys. I wouldn't call us like the originals, but we were, because the club had been around for quite some time. But in its current form, we're sort of the core of what was there.
Yeah.
And now a lot more people have come to the club. Not everybody plays competitively. But that is one of the things that we do. And I think we take it quite seriously in a nice way. We don't just play, we practice, which I think is something that's quite good. I've done it with you and just pretty much everybody. You'll have a list in mind and you'll be like, right, I want to try it going first and going second on a couple of maps to really think like, okay, this is an Alpha Strike army. If I get first turn, and I like Alpha Strike armies, I'm like, I'm in your lines, that is chaos, instant win. But what happens if I go second? Turns out I'm only going to win half my games, and that game is going to be decided on a roll off. Yeah, this doesn't work. And we'll try little things, you know. I don't want to talk about when AdMech had like 6 flyers, but you might say, right, let's have a practice game. Can you bring X? Because I want to try Y. And it's not just competitive game. There's almost like a training and a practice element to it, but you can just have a fun game as well. So
so at the club, like you're saying, you have a lot of practice games, but there's also quite a large group of competitive players, aren't there, that's in your team, and it's grown from maybe 1 or 2 members to maybe about 10 competitive players. So you get a real range of like practice games. You know, you've got someone who plays Thousand Suns. You've got a dedicated like chaos player, a couple more people who meta chase and jump around, and then you've got the odd armies like Salamander, like Diehards, and you know me, Jakari, now Chaos. There's just a lot going for it.
You're absolutely right, a real spread, and everybody's got the same thought to them, as like they want to play competitively and get as good as they can be, and there's different standards within that competitive style. But I would say maybe there's 8 or 10 people that if they went to a one-day event and won it or went 3-0, I wouldn't be surprised. Like that you can kind of go, yeah, they're that standard. And to have like 10 people locally that can do that we're really lucky. And with a spread of armies as well. It shows the depth, the breadth, and also kind of the state of the game as well, that different people can do really well with different lists, which is really nice.
So with all that in mind, what's been the prep for LGT, and what would be your advice for people who are also kind of like prepping for like a big event like this?
So I think if you're going to win it, or there's a chance of you winning a big major tournament, you know that already. The chance of you winning it, you're already aware. You're that level. You're going to events and you're repeatedly going 3-0, 5-0, 4-1, and you win the vast majority of their games. We've got people like that. I'm looking at one now on the screen, Tom. I'm not that level. I'd like to get there. I can go to an event. I can go 3-0. I can go 2-1. My aim is to always win more games than I lose and push it. If you're going to win and like realistically going to win a super major, there's one level of, I think, of play there, but then you've got where I think I am, and the majority of players that are probably watching this are what can I do to get the most out? I'd love to go at week Saturday, win every game, 100 points and win the event. But I'm being realistic. It's probably not going to happen. Like, I know that, but I'm going to push as hard as I can and get as much out of it as I can and do as well for me. So in terms of prep, I think you've got to know your army inside out as much as you can and have a game plan, offensively and defensively. I think in 9th, not knowing if you're going first or second is an interesting dynamic. In 8th, where you deploy knowing you were going first, not having that now is quite fun. So I think you've almost got to deploy defensively, but then have an offensive plan from there. Or deploy offensively and then go, oh, right, I'm going second now. Can I, Phantasm, I think it is, like those 3 units that I've got on the line and hide them and be able to cope with, get at the start of the game on that roll off, you've got the best opportunity that you have. So definitely play as many games as you can so you know what you're doing, and do almost like the great thing about LGT and the UKTC events is you know the maps, you know what the deployment zones are, you know where the terrain is. So you can have your deployment plans, and you can even go as far, and I think people do, if I'm playing this list or this, like I'm playing 4 big knights, I know what I'm going to do. I'm playing a whole bunch of orcs, and I know they're coming towards me as soon as possible. And as soon as they can get that advance and charge off, they will. I'm going to deploy differently. And you go around, and sometimes you'll see people with like little notepads with their little deployment plans on, which is really good, because I think when you're gaming, you need as much mental capacity to concentrate on what you need to concentrate on. And if there's anything that you can almost do automatically, you can free up that capacity to focus on that. Does that make sense? Like, I don't need to think about this because I know what's going to happen. It's automatic. I know we had a practice game the other day, and our deployment was so quick because we knew where we were going to put our models, and we were doing the timer, and you click it down and be like, my model's down, click it down. It was like really quick. Back and forth, because you know where you're going to put your units. You don't have to worry about it. You've got your plan versus that type of army. And then I'm thinking about the next, trying to think a stage ahead. So I think that definitely helps. Not cheat sheets, because cheating is wrong, but like check sheets. I call them a cheat sheet. So I have 1 sheet of paper with all my stratagems written on, with how many CP they are, and like a quick bullet point of what they do. It's like sometimes you get a paragraph on a strat, but you can paraphrase it into a sentence. Now, you should know the most common stratagems that you're going to use, but there might be some that you don't use very often that just pop up every now and again. Rather than scrolling through your book or your app, you've got it there on a bit of paper. You might have your list written down there, so you know what you give up for no prisoners, bring it down, kind of like 1 sheet of paper that's got all your info that you need on, so you can go, that's there. And that can also help if you've got a warlord trait that is a defensive ability that you don't use very often. Just note it down so you've got a little guide to help you. So it's not cheating, it's giving yourself every available opportunity to make the smart decisions by not having to go under the table, get out the book. You'll need it there anyway in case you need to double check the specific wording on something, but you've got a little helpful guide. So that's what I kind of do to prep.
It makes perfect sense, and definitely doubling down, and almost how I say it is dummy proofing your your games, so then you can just walk in and have a game plan already set out, and you don't really need to go through your book looking for stratagems. It's definitely a good game plan. So at LGT this year, can you give me what you would like to achieve, and what army you're bringing? Because I know, being a friend, that you have the Harlequins, you have the Meta Chaos, you have all of these armies. But there's one in particular that you're desperate to take to LGT, and you submit the list. And why are you taking it? Thought process on the list, and then finally, where do you want to come?
Okay, so I'm taking Admech. I've been playing Admech, apart from 2 events, every single tournament I've been to this year. A team event, I took Blood Angels, and a local event at ours, I took Harlequins. And I'm taking Admech for a couple of reasons. At the start of the season, I was playing them, and I did all right, and I was quite happy. So as the season's progressed, I know I'm not in the sort of like the Champions League positions for like the best players. I'm not going to win LGT. I'd love to. My goal would be to win. I'm going to play to try and win and do as best as I can. But I know it's not realistic. I'm with the best army in the game against the named players that everybody knows. They're going to beat me. I know that, but I'm going to try and do as well as I can and get as many points as I can. I want to get as high as I possibly can on that sort of rankings at the end of the event, and I want as many points from that to go towards my ITC ranking, because I'm trying to focus this season on getting as high up as I can on Admech for the year. I went with them. My head was turned with Harlequins. It then rapidly went back to Admech, and I'm focusing on that, and I want to get as much out of them as I possibly can. I'm realistic with it. There are better Admech players than me out there, but that's what I've picked for the season. It's the first time I've ever stuck with an army for an entire season, or for the most part, and see how far I can push that. So I've gone for Admech. It doesn't seem to be that many Admech players going.
Maybe you'll get top. Maybe you get top Admech and get a little plaque, because they get little
that would be that would be lovely.
Best in function.
It's they're, for me, they're quite a tricky army to play, but I've put in the reps, so hopefully I'll get as much out of them as I possibly can. That's the goal, is to win every game that I can possibly win, because I know there are some games that are going to be very difficult for me to win. I could play the best player in the world with the best army. I might roll all 6s, they might roll all 1s.
Yeah.
Probably not going to happen, but I'll take it 100%.
Good.
But just to get as much out of it as I can, I guess, and come away going, yeah, I've achieved as much as I possibly could. You can't all win it. You can't all go 4-1. That's not how it works. But you go there with that intent to do as best as you possibly can, and come out the other side as a better player, because you will play people you've not played before, and they'll do things that you've not seen or considered, and you'll go, I like that move, I like that approach, that's going in my toolkit.
Yeah.
And I'll get better for the next time. Or you might not have considered something, and it's not been a way you've approached the game, and it sort of got you by surprise, and you're like, well, that's not going to happen again. But you learn from losing, so
yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You do. Well, I'll be rooting for you for Best in Faction over the weekend. And
cheers, buddy.
Yeah, so what I'm hopefully going to do, it might not come in, but I'm hopefully going to catch up with you, and we do a little video interview either on the Saturday or the Sunday, and maybe I remember my camera, maybe I not, but we'll touch in and see how you do, and yeah, I wish you all the best of luck for LGT, and
Thank you.
Best in Faction.
I'll do my best, and good luck for you. I think you're at the Invitational before as well, right?
Oh yes,
Well, good luck with that. I know we were talking about your list for that this morning, so that was good. And yeah, keep it up, Dom. Loving the content. It's awesome.
Cool. Thanks, Matt.
No worries.
On to the next guy. So I'm back with another player. This guy is called Chris, and he is from the S.A.W Submariners. So hi, Chris.
Hi, guys.
So the S.A.W Submariners are a UK-based tournament team, and there's going to be a few of them knocking around at LGT. And the S.A.W Submariners are a pretty good team at that. So currently in the UK, they're 5th ranked, and world ranking is 13th. Which I might say, Chris, that's quite impressive.
Cheers, thank you, thank you.
So a little bit about Chris is that he is a very, very good Space Wolf player, and he is currently ranked #1 in the UK and #2 in the world rankings, which I got to applaud you on that. That is some commitment to a non-meta army, is it?
It hurts me that I'm #2 in the world. I was #1 a couple of weeks ago.
Well, that's the thing about LGT. It's big points, and this is why players like you come to such big events like this. Is so you just before, the UKTC season is finishing, but the actual ITC is not. So this is going to give you a huge boost in points, and if you get that all-important top 100, top 50 finish that you desire so much, the points for that are going to be huge. So. Yeah, so tell us about your club. Tell us about your team.
So so we're a team. We're based around the Midlands, based around Wolverhampton. I think most of us live around there. We actually started about a year ago, so it's really interesting because our very first event was the LGT last year.
Oh, nice.
And just me and one other guy went, and me and Billy Sutter, who's not going to be there this week at the LGT this year, but we went down. That's when we first did S.A.W Submariners, and we've kind of just grown really quickly. Really quickly. We've got a solid base of people that we've a few of us been friends for a while or just played the game for a while, and a good chunk of us just only got into competitive play about a year ago, like myself. And then we went to events, tried to be as social as possible. Absolutely love the social side of the event, love a drink, and we got talking to a lot of people, and yeah, it's just gone from there, really.
Yeah, well, it's great because we played at, I think it was Birmingham GT.
Yeah, that's our game. Yeah.
I was playing Harlequins when they were broken, and you gave me a really good game with your Space Wolves, with all of the heroic intervenes and everything.
Yeah, I love heroic intervenes.
Yeah, it was a mechanic I've never really come across before, and I think you're the 4th Space Wolf player I've played in my competitive career, which is only a couple of years for me as well. And I was really thrown back at it because it's quite funny. It's not as broken as the Fight and Death was, which I was running, but then again, it's not as broken as the Crusher's Bow, which I'm running now.
Yeah.
They're just like rubbish power swords from elves fighting on death. But it was, I charge you heroic intervene, I die, but you die as well, and it was like a weird trade war. And it was a really fun game, and it came down to like there's a big turning point in our game when I whiffed on the haywire bikes on your dreadnought, but then 2 lone fusion pistols managed to pop one, and that turned to be the big game changer in that.
That was a really good game. It was a really tense first couple of turns because you went crazy aggressive.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh bloody hell, I'm under the cosh straight away.
Yeah. But so that was actually my first time that I saw so many S.A.W Submariners, either as objective markers, if it was like t-shirts running around, and it really caught my eye. And ever since then, I've kind of kept an eye on the club because I'm always interested to see all of these new teams that are coming up, or even if it, like you said, like your team kind of formed at LGT last year. What list are you bringing to LGT this year?
So we've got 5 of us are going. We're going to make a trip down from Wolves, or a couple who are actually local as well. We've got me. I'll be running Space Wolves, nearly as always. First time running Space Wolves for like 3 months now, actually. Had a little bit of break from, but I'm back for the points. And then we've got Ed Watts. He's running his Tyranids. We've got Ed Fawcett. You might see at events. Lovely guy, wears a waistcoat every event. He's running his Nids as well. Tom Brown is going to be running he was Harlequins, but he's changed last minute to Blood Angels, I think.
Oh, wow.
And then Richie, who's going to be going with his Goth Orcs, and he's going to be spamming Orc Boys, and he's going to be running
Hey,
a
there we
one.
go. Oh, I'd love to face that round one. Just a big fight in the middle.
Yeah.
That's what I like to see. That's what I like to see.
He'll be the guy with a painful back at the end of it by round 5. You can't walk.
Yeah, I hope he's got movement trays, because that is going to be tense. That is going to be tense. So, what? Obviously, going to a big super major, like you want to chase as high as possible.
Yeah.
For people who don't usually go to big events like this, do you have any like advice of how to prep for a big super major like this?
I think my main advice is I do try and do what I did a year ago. Is I went on BCP, subscribed, and I started just looking at a few lists of people who do well. So I looked at the ICT, I looked who's number 1 or 2 for Space Wolves, and then I just looked at their lists, and then I copied it, played 1 or 2 games of it exactly, and then started just to edit it myself into what I think worked and what didn't work. But that's what I do really. Just look at what's working for some people, and then start to try and change their list around what you think is going to work to your play style, and the secondaries that you're thinking I'm going to pick these.
Yeah.
I think that's my biggest piece of advice. And then go there knowing this is my game plan. These are the secondaries I'm going with. So.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And it's a super major. It's got loads of people going. I think it's nearly 700 people going to this event. It was even though it was supposed to be near to 1,000, because Zach was trying to break the record for LVO, but I think LVO might get it this time. But LGT is such a special event, especially because of our small island, you get so many people coming in from all over the country, and people flying in from all over Europe. Some people come from America. What is like the biggest I know we'll do it for points and for and all of that, but what are some other reasons that you would think that people will come to LGT for?
I think just the atmosphere of it all. It's not just the 40k that's going on. There's loads of other games, which is really, really cool to see. I remember, like I said, LGT was my first ever big event, and I ended up playing someone from Iceland. I can't remember his name. It starts with J. I think we called him Jay because I couldn't pronounce his name. But I met someone from Iceland who'd flown over for the weekend, and I thought that's amazing. Someone's flown over from Iceland for the weekend to play 40k. Having conversations with loads of different people from different areas, and just having like a good time, really, going out for a drink in the evening. And it's just really good fun. You're just spending a weekend in literally a big room, a big hall of over 1,000 people, because you've got the Age of Sigmar guys as well, and so on. Just talking about your hobby, talking about your models. You get the most amazing looking armies there as well. I think it's just the whole weekend. Obviously, there's the point side and the competitive side, but the whole weekend just a great weekend. It's one that since I've started, I'm going to look forward to now, pretty much probably every year, with a goal.
Yeah.
So that'll be the hope, the aim.
Yeah. So I find it as well. Like last year was almost like a big shock to me, because we just come out of COVID in the UK, really, and then it kind of, we were just in this room full of people that we hadn't been around, and it was kind of like a Warhammer Disneyland. Like you haven't seen people for so long, and you're going up to them, having a chat. You meet people during the day. Like you always have people coming and talking to you, and it's great. Like even the players that you play, you always like remember them, and like during the day, you're like, oh, how are you getting on now? Like all this sort of stuff, and you make friends, which is a great thing to do.
Absolutely. I think when I went there as well, because I went to a couple of smaller events before, and I recognized loads of people. I was like, oh, you're my game 2 at that event. You're my game 1, and so on. And you just that such a large proportion of the 40k player base is there on that weekend. It's just brilliant, really, isn't it? You can't see meeting people you didn't expect to meet, and so on, and see people you didn't expect to see, or maybe haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah, exactly that. So where would you like to end up at this LGT? What is kind of like your goal going into it?
Oh, number 1, of course, obviously.
Number 1.
Space was number 1. Never seen before. We'll do it again. Try and do it first time. No, I think being realistic about it. I think we've got some very tough matchups in the meta. I think stuff like Nids. That's a tough uphill battle.
Yeah.
Like the David Gaylord list. I've practiced it a little bit against a few people, and it doesn't go well. So different things. So I think I'm going to aim for a good 4-1. That's my hope. That's my goal. A 4-1 with a good battle score at the end. Realistically. But obviously that 5-0's in the back of your head. You know, there's so much variance of pairings with so many people at the event. I hope for a 5-0, but yeah, a good 4-1.
Yeah,
if I run into your fat and desperation of bile, maybe a 3-2.
Yeah, I'm just chomping at the bit just to get any sort of combat army. Just
imagine.
like, oh, come on, guys, let's have a fight.
Yeah.
You'll charge me, I'll die. So are you. The thing is, it's not the same as elves, like I was saying before, because it's just the rubbish power source. You've got possessed fighting on death.
Yeah.
Discordant fighting on death. It's just disgusting.
It is nuts. It's tough.
Yeah. So what do you think of the meta now? I'm sure you've seen all of the charts that have been going around of like.
I love it. Love it. I think at the moment the game's the best it's ever been in terms of the meta. Like I said, I've always played Space Wars pretty much. I've dabbled recently the last couple of weeks just with Harlequins and Sisters, just in the last few smaller events. But I've always played Space Wars at the big events. And I think we went for a period, didn't we, where you had Custodes and Tau and the indirect fire and and light quins, which I played for a little bit. But we had that and it felt hopeless. As soon as you paired some, there's no way. Whereas now you're pairing to Necrons and I feel like you've still got a fighting chance.
It doesn't feel so oppressive, does it?
Yeah, it doesn't. No, it doesn't at all. You feel like you've still got a foothold in the game, and that you can still pounce on your opponent's mistakes. And you can still bridge that gap, maybe, and you still win. With maybe the more average armies, the average not quite at the top. Yeah. So I think the game's in a really, really good place until the time comes out, but we won't talk about that.
Oh God, no! I'm so pleased it's not out.
Yeah, same.
That would be brutal. Yeah. I would even say that it could be all of the top 20 would be Votann.
I think we can confidently say that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a dangerous game that Games Workshop are playing with that book as well. It doesn't set a good precedent for when Guard come out.
No.
Definitely. And I already fear the Death Strike now. Imagine what that's going to be at Votann level. So
I think I've been just a little bit disappointed because the last few codex I think have been really good. I think Chaos is a great codex. I think Demons is a great codex. As in sitting at a good power level for a new codex.
Yeah,
they've been good. They've been relevant. If you're very skillful, like yourself and like Vic with his Emperor's Children, they look incredible.
Yeah,
but there's still require a lot of skill there for them. They're not quite just auto win like the ones before have been. And then Steve Votann, I've been a bit like, oh God, we're back to this.
Yeah.
Please fix it quick.
Exactly. So can I get your prediction then? What do you think are going to be, if you were to say, doesn't matter what player, you don't have to name any players or anything like that, but what do you think are going to be 1, 2, 3 in the LGT at the end of the day? What armies?
Top 3 armies. I think Nids. For me, Nids are the best army, all round. I think that David Gale's list is also impressive. The 2 warrior bricks. And people are adapting it to get better now. I think it's getting more difficult. So I think Nids will be up there. I think Necrons would be in the top 3 as well, definitely. Because they just play such a passive game. They score so well. I think all the pressure's on your opponent to do something.
Yeah.
In that game. So I think Nids, Necrons, especially Necrons, that new Wraith and Scarab build. I was running the math on that, and that's gonna be tough. Even with Space with a huge output, you can't get through 9 Scarabs in one go. So those 2, and then I don't know, man. I think.
You think Jukari might
that third one?
Get creeping. Oh, Manny's rack list.
Oh, Manny. Probably Manny's the 1, 2, 3. If you was to pick my top 3 armies at the event, I think it would be Nids, Necrons, and probably a Chaos, like some migrations as well, maybe. Chaos be in there.
Yeah, I think Tau also looking quite dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was speaking to Carl, then I had a look at a few other players, and Nassim's running Tau as well. Maybe Alex Harrison as well. I'm pretty sure was running Tau. So there's some big name players who are going to be running that because it's so good into a lot of the meta armies. It's very good into Chaos, which I predicted it. I actually thought it was going to be about 40% of the armies were going to be Chaos, like Chaos Knights, Chaos Demons, Chaos Space Marines, so I think that's probably what they predicted as well. It's gonna be a really interesting event, and what I'll do is we'll have a little catch up, and hopefully when I get you 4-0 going into your final day, try and not spook you too much. But thank you so much for coming on this. It's very, very short and sweet, this little interview, but I just wanted to kind of give people exposure about all of the teams that are kind of going through LGT. Doesn't matter where everyone's from. There's a team for everyone, and I wish all of you boys at S.A.W Submariners good luck for the event, and you as well.
Excellent. Thanks so much, mate. Cheers. Thank you, Tom. Thank you for having me.
No worries.
Cheers.